Welcome to Secret Story. Heather and I were married, not to each other mind you. Heather and Grant were neighbors to Terry and I, and we got together often. Not that kind of get together, just evenings together playing board games, watching movies, or just visiting. Heather was the woman I knew. Some women are nice to look at. Heather was one. My wife Terry is good looking, but Heather was more than just attractive. About a year ago, Grant announced he was getting a promotion at work, so we had them over for a little celebration. We bought some champagne and made a big dinner for them. As we ate and drank, the champagne soon ran out and we switched to harder drinks. Grant told us he was going to have to be out of town about 1 week a month with his new position. His first trip would be the week after next. How do you feel about being left alone while Grant is away? Terry asked Heather. I don't know, I'll have to find something to keep me busy, I guess. I could definitely keep you busy. Brent? Earth to Brent, came through the fog. Did you hear me? Terry asked. Oh, sorry, daydreaming, I replied. Grant was saying that Heather may need your help with the lawn and stuff when he is away. You'll help, won't you? Oh, sure. It's just that I hate using that riding mower, Heather said. I'll tell you what, I suggested, if I can use your riding mower to cut my lawn, I'll do yours too. Deal. Grant answered, while I'm away, if you need use of anything of mine. Help yourself. If only. I thought, subtly leering at Heather as I continued my fantasy that I never thought about the lawn again until about 2 weeks later. On a Tuesday evening after dinner, as my wife was leaving for her night shift, she mentioned that I should get the lawns cut. You promised Grant and Heather you'd cut theirs as well, she added as she stepped out. That I got changed into some shorts and a t-shirt and headed over to Heather's to borrow the riding lawn mower. I was looking forward to seeing Heather again, but had no idea how this evening was going to turn out. As I stepped up to the back door, I straightened my shirt and pressed the doorbell. Who is it? Heather called from inside. Brent, I answered. Oh, come on in, Brent. I'll be right there. I opened the door and stepped inside. I could smell the scent of Heather's perfume, and although I'd been in this house many times, I realized it has always been the four of us. It was never just Heather and I alone. Heather appeared down the hallway and, as always, sorry, I was just putting in some laundry. Excuse the way I look, these are my exercise clothes. I was just about to get in a little workout. You look great. Where do you work out? Well, thanks. She said with a smile. I just work out here at home. I have a few exercise videos that I use. It's probably not as effective as joining a club or something, but I can do it whenever I have time. I would guess you find the time often enough, I ventured, then cut off any further comment, worried that I had spoken my fantasy life too far into reality. Heather blushed slightly, then responded, well, thanks, Brent. I do what I can, she added. I'm glad you noticed, it's nice to be appreciated, then turned to reach something in the cupboard. As she reached high in the cupboard, I was mesmerized. Then as she turned her head to me, I was also caught. Heather was looking at me as I stared at her. As quickly as I could, I looked up to her face. Her expression showed no anger or embarrassment, though. A mischievous grin actually spread across her lips. I wanted to say something to relieve the tension I felt and retain some dignity. But she beat me to it. Yep, it sure is nice to be appreciated, she repeated with a giggle. I'm sure my face was blood red with embarrassment, and I stammered to say something. I felt like an idiot. Heather laughed. Don't be embarrassed, Brent. If it bothered me that you were at I would have told you long ago. This isn't the first time I've seen you do it, you know. Really? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry if I embarrassed you. Oh, Brent, don't worry about it. If it bothered me, I would have said something. It's kind of flattering, actually. Besides, I have been ogled by men since I was a teenager. I never felt threatened by you or anything, so relax. Now, I can't speak for Grant and Terry, mind you. They might have a different opinion. Since Grant is in Europe, he can't say much right now, though, she grinned. then added, "Where is Terry tonight?" "Just left for the hospital." "She's working tonight," I added, my mind still racing. "She reminded me to cut the grass before she left." "Ah," Heather replied, "you came to borrow the mower." "Well, the lawn isn't that bad," I replied, matching her grin. "Oh good. It's been way too quiet around here with Grant gone. Would you like a drink?" "Sure, whatever you're going to have," I responded as I slipped off my sneakers and followed her toward the den. As she led the way down the hall, she reached behind her with both hands and playfully pulled her shirt down. She looked over her shoulder, giggling and scurrying down the hall. "Haha," I said. "Now I don't feel embarrassed at all." "Hee hee. A girl can't be too careful," she responded. "Some men can't control themselves." "How is your willpower, Brent?" she asked. "Well, I promise not to touch, I can't promise not to look." "Haha. Good answer," she replied as we stepped into the den. Heather poured us each a vodka and 7, handed me one and invited me to sit on the couch as she dropped into the seat. "So how have you been making out with Grant away?" "Oh, okay, I guess, a little lonely is all." "I imagine. When is he due home?" "The day after tomorrow. I have a big welcome home planned for him." "Really?" "Yep. Making a big dinner and then a romantic evening at home. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, they say." "Not just the heart," she winked and giggled. "Now don't go there," I sighed, "I think we all know what else grows fonder." "Oh, sorry, does that make you uncomfortable?" "Well, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, it's just that I'm afraid what I might say." "Oh, okay," she half pouted, "I would like to have a man's perspective on what would be a good romantic evening. But if it would bother you, I'll have to wing it." "No, it's okay. I'd love to help." Have you got some ideas?" "Oh, lots." She seemed excited to share them. "I even went shopping." She smiled coyly. She stood and I thought she was going to show me what she had shopped for. But she held up her empty glass. "Another drink?" "Sure." I answered. "What kind of shopping?" "Well, let's see. A few things." She hesitated as she returned with the drinks. She took her seat and continued. Let me ask this right up front, Brent. I hope you aren't embarrassed, but are you and Terry adventurous?" I stammered, "Not as much as." "Well, why do you ask?" "Well, because," she paused, then leaned toward me and lowered her voice in a more secretive tone. "Brent, we've been friends for quite a while. Can we decide that this conversation is just between us, and we have to be honest?" I nodded and she continued, "I have occasionally talked to women about these things. But never a man. I'd love to know your point of view." "Sure. We'll keep it to ourselves," she asked with a look that no man would be able to resist. "Absolutely." "Great." She seemed excited. "Well, I might as well start at the start," she said. "I am a very person, the problem is, Grant isn't so much." "Ah, I see." I replied. "Was he ever?" She paused. "This is cool being so open." Heather smiled, her eyes wide with excitement of telling her deep secrets. "I know what you're saying, and I can sympathize." "Exactly." Heather replied. "It is so cool to have someone to talk to about this, especially someone who can relate." Heather looked thoughtful for a bit and then started to laugh. "What? I guess that might explain why you are always checking me out when you think nobody is looking." She giggled. "Well, I guess that is part of it." I responded, still slightly embarrassed. That I added. "Maybe subconsciously I can sense that you aren't getting enough either." She smiled broadly. "Thank you, Brent, you flatterer. And so far as getting enough, I'm not, believe me. A beautiful woman like you that needs more attention, no. I was sure tempeed a few times though." "I hear ya. Same here." "Well, if you've never fooled around, how do you get rid of your tension?" I asked with a laugh. "That helps take my mind off of it, but does nothing to relieve that kind of tension. So. She mimicked as she grinned, blushing. Well. What do you do? I grinned, appearing innocent. You know very well what I do. It's the same thing you do and everyone else does, she replied, apparently embarrassed but not hedging on the conversation. Oh. I answered, appearing to just catch on. You mean? Yep, I do that lots. Heather laughed out loud. I can't believe where this conversation has gone, she said. Well, since we promised to be honest, I do too, she added with laughter that was tinged with embarrassment. Does Grant know you play? No, I think it would insult him if he knew I needed more. Maybe. So how do you get away with it? Oh, sorry, I laughed, it just intrigues me. Envisioning a beautiful woman, enjoying herself, is what I do when I play. I wanted to get the details right, I smiled. Good answer, she giggled, then as she squirmed in her seat a bit, she added, I guess that's another thing we have in common. Really? She held up her glass, again. Sure, but I have to use the washroom. I'll be right back. Okay, I have to change over the laundry as well, make yourself comfortable. After using the washroom, I returned to the den and waited for Heather. When I sipped my drink, I could taste the vodka in it. Heather was pouring heavy and had been obviously teasing me. I was wondering where this evening was headed. After a few minutes, I heard Heather come down the hall behind me. So Brent. She called, you promised to give me your opinion of what you would consider romantic. That's right, I did, I responded, not turning around. Okay. A promise is a promise, she continued from behind me. I wondered what she was getting at, but as she came into my field of view, I knew. What other promises did you make? She asked in that delightfully naughty tone. To be honest. And. I didn't know what she was getting to. Oh, right. I remembered, look, but don't touch. Right, she laughed. I wanted your opinion on an outfit I bought for when Grant gets home. I am sure I can give you that opinion right now. I'm sure any man would love whatever you are wearing under that housecoat. But not touching, you might be asking too much. That is just teasing, you know, I answered with a smile. Well, if you can't promise not to touch, I guess I'll have to go change. No looking for you, she teased as she started to turn around to leave the room. I promise. I promise. Well, okay. If you promise, she answered. Then she slowly turned her back to me. Heather winked at me, then dropped her arms. The weight of the housecoat did the rest. Heather smiled in appreciation at my reaction. She paused for a moment, allowing my eyes to take it all in, then spoke in an exaggerated voice. So, do you think that this outfit would be a good start to a romantic evening? I was completely speechless. Here was my fantasy. So close, and yet I couldn't touch. What agony. Oh man. You're gorgeous, Heather. I managed to say. Ah, thank you, she added as she looked and you seem to have answered my question. I squirmed in my seat, trying to relieve the pressure. I guess so. I envy Grant. What makes you envy Grant the most? All of you. All of you. I've always thought so. Flatterer. I love it, she giggled. I'm not just flattering you, honest. You said yourself you caught me watching you before. Well, how do I know that isn't something you do all the time? Oh, please don't. You look way too good. Well, that is the truth. Have you ever cheated on Terry? Nope, but like you. I have been tempted. I had never cheated on my wife. I am going to make a logical argument. You see if there are any flaws in it. Okay. She answered, well, if I happened to walk in on you and Grant, that wouldn't be cheating, would it? No. Unless you joined in. Her eyes betrayed her, the thought of being with two men intrigued her. I'd have to keep that in mind. Right, I agreed. Huh, she answered with a little smile crossing her face. So, by this reasoning it wouldn't really be cheating, I said in a slightly hushed voice, if we happen to see each, providing we never put our hands on each other, just ourselves. Heather was obviously as intrigued by the idea as I was. No, by definition, that wouldn't be cheating, she replied. I have to agree, there is nothing wrong with that argument. I like the way you think, Brent. Brent, she spoke, I'll be right back, I want to get something. As I sat down, on the couch once again, I heard Heather returning. She stepped into the room with a shoe box in her hands. As she came around the couch she laughed as she saw me. Well, when in Rome, she said as she set the box down, she was the vision of beauty that writers and poets try to describe. For Heather, the words couldn't do justice, I was in awe of her beauty. You like? She asked rhetorically, Brent, she called in a curious tone as she reached for the shoe box. Guess what I have in this box, do you? She replied excitedly. Grant hates them. He doesn't know I have these. I keep them hidden. Terry doesn't like them either. Haven't used them on her in a long time, ah. And you don't have any of your own? I wasn't sure what she meant but I answered, no, she got rid of all of them. Well, Grant doesn't know I have these, I keep this box with the rest of my shoes, she giggled, want to see? Okay. Here is my favorite, she said pulling an odd-looking device from the box. Why your favorite? I asked. Oh, it does lots all at the same time. Looks like fun, I answered enthralled by her description. I was looking forward to watching her use it. My mommy taught me to share, she said, so use anything you'd like. I'd like? What did she mean by that? I wondered. I don't think I need one, I admitted, but would love to see you use them. I thought you said you liked, she asked a bit disappointed. I do, but I never used them on myself. Ah. Ever wanted to? Honestly, I never considered it, would you try tonight, for me? She asked with a look that no man could refuse. Well, okay. I'll try it. Would you? Definitely. Heather's breathing finally relaxed some, it was my best for years too, I told her. Can we do this again, and again? She smiled, you think we should? What if Grant and Terry find out? They won't. If we're careful. Would you like to now?